Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India. Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaste, welcome to the second session on salary and compensation management. In this session, we will aim at understanding main incentives for individual employees. We will look at the pros and cons of the incentives for the sales people. We will have a detailed discussion on the incentive plans and how to design the incentive plans for the sales people. We will also look at the popular organization wide variable pay plans. Then we will look at main incentives for managers and executives, and we will also look at different type of benefits being provided to the managers and executives. We will also have discussion about the benefits for the workmen. Incentive plan, that simply means pay for performance. That means a pay tied to employees' performance. So, this generally happens to be the variable component of the payment. Incentive plan that ties a group's or team's pay to some measures of the firm's profitability, also synonymously used with the profit sharing plans. So, incentive plans can be designed at individual level, team level and organizational level. Generally in the organizations, we see the combination of the individual, team versus department and organizational level incentive plans. After scientific management, another concept which is very useful to understand the incentives and benefit plan is the intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Motivation, we know, is the drive, it is a foundation of the need to do or not to do something. There are two types of motivation understood in the literature: intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation means people look for autonomy, mastery, purpose and their expertise at their workplace. So, they work for or they work in the conditions of autonomy and they work to get mastery and they work to fulfill their higher purpose. Extrinsic motivation means the drive which comes from outside, that means compensation or the fear from punishment or attraction towards rewards. So, these are the extrinsic motivators. Intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation both affect the motivation, both affect the productivity, and a good incentive plan can leverage both the types of motivation for employees. Intrinsically motivated behavior, since it is motivated by the competency and self, and it happens based on the self determination. Incentive plans which promote the autonomy, which enhance more autonomy to the worker, which enhance the opportunity to get the expertise or career advancement or recognition, those are effective incentives. So, extrinsic reward for and extrinsic rewards are related to the salary, to the compensation. Basically extrinsic rewards have more and clear monetary value. If we offer an extrinsic reward for people who are intrinsically motivated, generally that do not work. In fact, it can backfire. People who are intrinsically driven for something, if we give them and if we talk more about extrinsic reward to them, it may distract their performance, it may distract their focus. In fact, they may not like to pursue that work if extrinsic reward is too much appreciated or too much promoted for them to carry out their job. Some behaviors are best motivated by the intrinsic rewards only. So, an employer who is designing the incentive and benefits, they need to look at what is the kind of motivation they wish to promote, they wish to nurture amongst the different kind of employees. Many knowledge workers, professionals, artists, researchers, many a time they are driven more by the intrinsic motivation rather than extrinsic motivation. And many of the jobs and people working in the jobs which are more related to the physical productivity, which are the outcome of those jobs are more evident, outcome of the jobs is more clearly evident in the day to day productivity. In those many jobs, the extrinsic motivation seems to be driving force, a stronger driving force at work, a stronger driving force for the employees. So, incentive plans should be designed according to the people who are intrinsically driven or driven by extrinsic motivation. Third theory which affects the incentives and benefits are the behavior modification or reinforcement theory. This is the legacy of the behavioralism in the psychology. Skinner is the founding father, Skinner is the person who popularized the behavioral theory of the behavior. It is based on understanding of the behavior and its consequences, and consequences in terms of the favorable consequences or the unfavorable consequences. So, behavior that leads to a positive consequence or reward tend to be repeated. That is the basic finding, one of the basic findings of the behavioral school. While behavior that leads to the negative consequences or punishment tend not to be repeated. So, behavior can be changed by providing the properly scheduled rewards or properly scheduled punishment. For a particular behavior, there has to be specifically identified reward or punishment that should be communicated and that should be delivered properly without fail. That is the strongest way of driving employees' behavior towards the objectives, towards the goal for which organization want them to work, and that is the legacy of the behaviorism or behavioral school of motivation or behavioral school of psychology. These theories were presented, these theories were propounded in the earlier part of the 20th century. We are in the first quarter, our first quarter is going to end of the 21st century. So, though these theories are applicable, we see around us major changes because of technology, globalization and various economic reasons. According to 2019 Accenture study, 71% of the 10,000 companies they surveyed across 18 industries are either in the verge of disruption or they are in the process of disruption. That means, the business models predominantly governing those industries, business model predominantly being followed by the organizations, followed by the companies in those industries are changing drastically. Similarly, McKinsey also concluded that automotive, electronics, aerospace, defense industry are going to see more disruption in the next 5 years than in the past 20 years combined. So, at the time of the major disruptions going on in the business models, it is important to look at benefits and incentive plan as well according to the changing needs of the business models and accordingly changing needs of the workforce of current times. So, we are going to look at some of the basic fundamental concepts of the incentive planning. So, we are going to look at some of the basic concepts behind designing the incentive and benefit plans, and we will also look at what are the emerging and new practices which are more suitable for the current type of the employees and a new form of business models which are emerging across industries. Incentive plans are generally offered in the form of cash, gifts and experience. What is offered, it is a matter of the creativity and innovative nature of the HR team. They can identify very innovative incentives based on the employees' aspirations and employees' need. One example can clarify this matter further. This example is of an organization located in the Midwest in the USA, which is the colder region in comparison to many other parts. In this organization, in a contest, a prime parking space was put up as the first prize. So, winning team was supposed to get a very prime parking spot near the front gate, and that generated very significant excitement and bragging rights for the winners. Nonetheless, the gifts can be of the electronics, can be of the ride share credit, gift cards. Experience can include perks like tickets to concert, festivals, sporting events, vacation with the family, so on and so forth. While designing the compensation system, towards the end of the previous session, we looked at some of the basic policy decisions an organization has to take. These policy decisions are related to fixed versus variable pay. So, today we are going to talk more about the variable pay. In the previous session, we discussed about the fixed pay and how it is generally decided. Short term versus long term focus. Incentives can also be immediate term, medium term, short term and long term. On the spot prizes are more immediate reward, employee of the month or employee of the quarter, these are more short term incentives based on those performance, based on these rewards, short term incentives can be decided, and incentives can also be in the form of employee stock options which are of the very long term nature. Cash versus equity, ESOPs is a equity and cash award. So, organizations have to decide to what extent they want to so organizations have to decide what is the optimum combination they wish to offer as an incentive to the employee. Individual versus group incentives. We know that in organizations people have to fulfill their individual objectives, team objectives, departmental objectives in order to fulfill the organizational object. So, if only individual rewards are given, then the individualism and the individual performance can be promoted, but if rewards are predominantly or mainly at the group level, it might promote the free rider problem. So, in order to balance the individual performance orientation and to avoid the free riders problem, organizations have to identify the optimum reward system at the individual and group level. Last but not the least, financial and non-financial component. There can be large number of non-financial component of the rewards. We are going to look at some examples, but as I said before, it is a matter of the imagination, creativity and innovation of the HR department to think about the non-financial component and offer it. That can generate excitement, that can generate urge for the employees to perform well, perform better, stretch their performance to win those incentives. Employee incentive plans or pay for performance can be of generally of these 5 types: individual employee incentive and recognition programs, sales compensation program, team or group based incentive or variable pay programs, organization wide incentive programs, and executive incentive compensation programs. Individual incentive programs or recognition programs can be based on the performance and can be based on the longevity of their work, commitment, quality of the work. So, depending on what is the expectation, what is the most valued goal of the organizations, and nowadays we are going to have more discussion on this later in this session, but very briefly I can say there is a line of discussion which suggests that instead of just focusing on the strategic objectives, the incentive plans or the reward should be more associated, more strongly associated with the mission of the organization, because when we focus on the mission of the organization and pay rewards on the behavior which promote in realizing the mission of the organization, that gives a sense of continuity quarter to quarter and in a very long term perspective. So, that is the important component of the incentive pay for performance plan. Incentives play a very important role in the sales compensation. In fact, the salary of the sales people happen to be largely based on a significant portion of the compensation of the sales people is largely based on the sales incentive, their performance in the sales. So, what are the ways and what are the best practices to design the sales compensation? That is what we are going to look at in the session. Team based and group based variable pay programs, we just discussed about it. Organization wide incentive programs, there has to be some component of the incentive which are based on the organizational performance. If we do not keep the organizational performance based incentive, people will promote, people will only remain focused at their individual performance, and because of that they may develop silo thinking, because of that departments may not be able to, because of that departments may not cooperate as much as they are required, and they may easily lose the sight for the organization, the very purpose of the existence of the different roles and different departments. So, there has to be a strong component of the organization wide incentive plans. So, we are going to look at few examples of the organization incentive plans like Lincoln plan or a Scanlon plan, and we are also going to have a discussion about the executive incentive compensation program. What are the emerging realities about the executive incentive programs? So, first and foremost, probably easiest and simplest is the piece work plan in the individual incentive plans. That simply means worker is paid a sum called a piece rate for the each unit he or she produces. This was started, as we said, with the scientific management popularized by Frederick Taylor. One basis is the straight piece work, one component wherein employee are supposed to make certain number of piece on a fair day, and standard hour plan means how much they have to produce per hour, and that is the simplest incentive plans. Anything above and beyond the straight piece work, organizations can decide what particular incentive can be given for per extra job, per extra piece being done by the employee. There are pros and cons of the piece work system. The benefit is that it is easily understandable, it is equitable and powerful incentives. People can see and they can calculate their timing, they can calculate their productivity, and they can calculate their compensation based on their productivity. Employee resistance to change in the standards or work process affecting output. That means, if an organization is following the piecework system, and if they wish to change the rate of the piecework, they have to face significant resistance from the employees, because employees generally have the tendency to retain the existing level of their productivity and to work on the existing level of expectation about the productivity. if we focus on the piece rate, if we focus on the pieces produced per day or per hour, in some cases a quality problem may arise. People may start overlooking the quality if the emphasis and if the reward and incentives are only based on the pieces. That can be certainly avoided by also identifying what is the basic minimum quality level required in any piece. Piece work, using the excuse of piece work, employer may violate the minimum wage standards as well. If they keep the salary primarily based on the piece work, they may calculate it in an unfair way, and that may result into employees earning lesser than even the standard wage rate. So, that is another drawback of the piece work plan. Many times it is seen that employer change the goalpost or they change the incentive plans. That causes lot of dissatisfaction, and many a time incentive plans are designed in that way which are almost unachievable by the employees, and that can cause major dissatisfaction amongst the employees. So, though the piecework system is simple, but it has lot of pros and cons, and that has to be used very judiciously. More advanced form of the piece rate is the merit pay. Permanent cumulative salary increase the firm awards to an individual employee based on his or her individual performance. So, merit pay is about achieving very high level, significantly higher than the average productivity of that workplace, and that level of the productivity is attached to increase in the salary. Many time it is a permanent increase, most of the time though it is increase or it is given in the form of the incentive for that particular year, but that is related to the merit pay, that is related to the yearly incentive. The pros and cons are as follows: differential reward for the performance. So, when there is a merit pay system, people know that if they perform better, they have chance to earn extra incentive, extra money or extra gifts or other things. That fulfills a condition put forth by the Vrooms in the expectancy theory, which says that apart from two other things, performance of the employee or motivation of the employee is dependent on the effort and reward connection. So, that is established, that is taken care of in the merit pay. However, it can be problematic if PMS, performance management system, is imperfect. In large percentage of the organizations, in so many surveys it is found that people are not satisfied, they do not trust the performance management system. So, if someone is, if employees are not trusting the performance management system or its perfection or the fairness of the performance management system, the merit pay which is actually based on the PMS will be looked at with the suspicion, and people may not consider that a fair process, and that will be the violation of the equity theory and the fairness component of the equity theory. You might remember we discussed equity theory in the beginning of the previous session. Connection between nature of job and impact of the merit pay also has to be considered. We looked at in the performance management system that some jobs, for the some jobs behavior is the better way of assessing performance, and for some jobs outcome is the better way of assessing performance. A merit pay which is based on the output is suitable for those jobs where the performance and output do not have very significant time lag, but in the jobs where time lag between the performance and the output is long, in those processes the merit pay generally do not work. So, there are certain options. one option about the merit pay is that annual lump sum merit raise is given that do not make the raise part of the employee's base salary. So, that remains like a reward and that do not constitutes that do not constitutes the salary of the employee from that point onwards. Merit awards can be also tied to individual and organizational performance. In that way, we will ensure that though employee take good care of their individual performance, but they are also focused and committed for the organization and they do not overlook the organizational objectives. So, in this slide one simple example is given how the merit pay can be linked with the individual performance and organizational performance. So, the weightage can be different here. For example, we have taken the weightage of 0.4 and 0.6 for the employee performance rating and company's performance rating. They have to predetermine the company's performance and organization also need to predetermine the maximum incentive award. So, for example, if 10% of the annual pay is considered to be the maximum incentive award when company performance matches the expectation and employee performance also is at the expected level. In that case, when both the components are achieved, the employee can get the 10% of the annual pay as incentive. In case of employee rating not being at the higher level or company's performance not being at the very high level as per the expectations, that ratio can change. In that case, it will be the factor of the fraction or the level of the organizational performance and employee performance and the weightage of both the component in deciding the annual incentive for the employees. So, based on those factors different numbers can be achieved and that much incentive can be given to the individual employees. Now, we will talk about incentives for the sales people. Incentives for the sales people are generally the combination of salary and commission. Salary plans are about the straight salaries, that is best for prospecting, finding new clients, account servicing, training customer sales force or participating in the national and local trade shows. For these activities straight salaries can be given. Commission plan can be based on the quota, can be based on the management by objective and this can also be straight based on the sales targets. So, pay is a percentage of the sales results that keeps the sales cost proportionate to sales revenue that may cause a neglect of non-selling duties. So, if the salary is based on majorly on the commission and if it is a straight sales value not based on the different component which are contributing the overall monetary value of the sales, then it may cause a neglect of the employees for the non-selling duties and non-selling items or difficult to sell items. People may avoid selling the range and focus on the best selling items only of the organization. It can also create wide variation in the salesperson's income. If it is a straight process, it can result into major variation in the sales people. If it goes beyond the limit, it may cause dissatisfaction. It may cause dissatisfaction because sales territories many a time are not comparable. So, a salesperson employed in a fruitful territory, a favorable market may keep earning the sales incentive year after year, whereas someone who is posted in a territory which is less attractive, where market of the company's product or services are less developed, though a person is setting up the new market and establishing the company's product and offerings in the new market, he or she may end up earning much lesser incentive in spite of his probably more effort. So, people may start seeing this process unfair, it will be violation of the equity theory, and that can increase the employee and sales person's turnover as well. So, straight commission plans generally do not work. The commission plan has to be linked with the sales quotas, because generally quotas are based on the year to year growth, and that can take care of the difference in the territory. However, there has to be incentives for the, not only for the sales, the monetary value of the sales, but also for the ranging, also for the range sales, also for the customer satisfaction, innovative practices, setting up the processes and systems, building the sales network. So, organizations need to look at the multiple components which enables, which are the enabling factors for the sales of the sales performance of the service and product in that region, and if different factors are considered to be part of the incentive plan based on which sales commission is decided, that may look more fair, and that may be helpful in helpful to organization to establish their market in the long run. So, these are the points, these are the general principles to be followed in the incentives for the sales people. So, the combination plans generally work, wherein a judicious combination of the commissions based on the different organizational wide sales related objectives and the basic salary, that makes the combination of the compensation. Plan gives sales people a safety net of their earning, people will feel satisfied. There has to be some basic pay, fixed basic pay for the sales people, for have them the sense of safety, sense of the some security in the job. Salary component cover the company wide specified service activities. So, in this way, in the by choosing the optimum combination of the different heads based on which commission and incentives are decided, organization can fulfill the strategic objectives as well. Plans, generally the combination plan tend to become complicated, and misunderstanding can be resulted because of that complication. So, there is a need for constant training and communication to the sales people about what is expected from them. Important thing to note is that performance expectations must be communicated in the very first phase of the performance cycle. Generally in the beginning of the year, they have to be communicated about the different heads on which the incentive plan or the sales commissions are decided. At the organizational level, whether the sales quotas or the sales incentive plan is working or not, we can look at that, we can examine that using these questions. First is, should quotas be locked in for the period of time, or it can be dynamic quota. Many organizations now are not deciding on the yearly sales, and many technology firms, many firms which sell softwares or which sell video games or which sell these IT based products and services, they are quicker in choosing not following the yearly sales quota based strategy. They have the sales target more dynamic in nature. So, the sales quota related information must be communicated in the beginning of the sales cycle, in the beginning of the performance cycle. We discussed with the previous slide as well. Does the sales force know exactly how its quotas are set? So, rationale and the logical description about how the sales quotas are decided, that has to be explained to the employees, and that satisfies the fairness or the procedural justice for the employees who are working to achieve that kind of incentive plan. Do you combine bottom up information like account forecast with the top down requirement like company business plan? So, a sales plan, sales incentive plan must be the combination of the bottom up information which takes care of the ground reality of the market, and top down requirement which is about the strategy of the organization. does 60 to 70% of the sales force generally hit their quota. So, quotas are fairly doing well. If the sales quotas are fair, one of the criteria is at least slightly more than half of the sales people should be able to achieve that quota, the average quota. Do the high performers hit their target consistently? That is also one of the indicators about the sales incentive plan is working or not. If the target, if the top performers are very different across the quarters or years, then there might be a case about the serendipity, there might be the case about lack of uniformity in the sales quota, and there might be something else other than the salesperson's performance can be at work in achieving the target. Do low performers show improvement over time? With coaching and training, and of course combined with the willingness of the sales people, are sales people, those who are not performing well, are able to increase their performance. That is also one of the indicators of the judiciously set sales quotas. Are quotas stable through the performance period? We should not change the goalpost until it is desirable, until it is justified, and if the goals are changed, that has to be done with the spirit of the management by objective, that has to be done with the spirit of fairness and open dialogue. Are returns and debookings reasonably low? In order to fulfill the sales quotas, people may overorder for the customers, people may push the product and services to the customers, and customers can be end customers or they can be distributors. Customers or particularly distributors can absorb the excessive ordering by the sales people only to a limited extent. Beyond that, they will start returning the product, and if that starts happening in a significant way, we need to see that sales people are communicate about it, and we need to look at the sales quota, whether it is fair, justifiable according to the market condition and according to the capacity of the customer. Has your firm generally avoided compensation related lawsuits? If my organization is constantly having the lawsuits, having large number of lawsuits about the compensation, then it might be an indicator that we need to look at the compensation and make it more justifiable and more fair. Is 10% of the sales force achieving higher performance than the previously? So, this is related to the previous question. In the previous question, we looked at whether people who are not able to perform well, with the training and coaching and combine their willingness, are they moving up in the performance cycle, are they moving up in the performance criteria. In the same way, whether sales people, the higher performer, whether the best performer, are they also increasing their performance year after year, and that also one of the indicator that sales quotas are set properly, the sales territories are also assigned properly. Is 5 to 10% of the sales force achieving below quota performance and receiving coaching? Sales incentive strategy is changing according to the changing environment. So, role specific incentives, split incentives, pre-sales incentives, omni-channel incentives and advanced analytics based target setting, that has changed in the current times in comparison to the traditional way of handling these things. For example, role specific incentive, traditionally it was only focused on the sales incentive, but now innovative sales incentive plan have the role differentiation in the sales incentive. Sales split, the split incentives, 100% crediting for only one sales representative. Now incentives are split based on the efforts, because many a time sales is closed with the help of multiple people involved in the dealing with the customers at different stages. So, the effort of every member in the sales cycle has to be recognized and accordingly compensated. KPIs, targets and payouts referring to deal closure only, that was the traditional situation. Until the deal is closed, we do not consider it sales and no compensation would be given. Now, with the increasing complexity and recognition that many a time you start one deal at in one financial cycle and may end after this cycle, may end in the next cycle or after a couple of cycles. So, in order to recognize this, cycle stage specific KPI are determined, so that there can be a scientific discussion, there can be more informed discussion between the supervisors and the employee at what stage up any particular customer is, and incentives can also be given. Many companies have started doing it. They have started giving the incentive for the customers who might not have completed the sales, they might not have closed the deal, but they might have been at certain level of the sales cycle. Only direct sales used to be incentivized generally in the traditional practices, but now omni-channel sales is incentivized. Omni-channel means seamless interconnection between the online, offline and different types of channel in the offline and online environment. That needs to be recognized, and sales quotas and sales incentives have to be determined based on the omni-channel environment. A basic business intelligence used for the target setting, that was the practice from that in traditional management, whereas in the advanced analytics more advanced target setting can be done, and accordingly it has impact on the sales incentive as well. So, this document is prepared by the Deloitte office in UK. We can look at the different styles of sales, different skill sets required to work in that style or in that mode of sales, how the sales cycle happens to be in the different styles, and what should be the component, what should be the combination of the fixed and the variable pay should be there according to the different styles or different modes, that is given in this table. First we will look at the mode and style of sales required to be adopted by the salesperson. The first is the transactional style or transactional mode, second is solution mode, third is consultative mode, and fourth is enterprise mode. Transactional mode, as the name suggests, and the salesperson's job is to hand over the product or service and get the price from the customers. In that kind of mode, the skill set required is the product knowledge, pricing and persistence, they have to follow with the clients. Solution based or solution mode of sales requires more understanding and communication about the value proposition and solution flexibility. So, the representative need to understand what is the solution, what is the problem of the customer and what is the optimum solution, and accordingly they have to offer the product. Many times they have to customize the offering as well according to the problem of the product, according to the problem of the customer. Consultative style or consultative mode requires a salesperson to give the advice as well to the customers to make the final choice about the product, service or combination involved in those product and services. That requires a salesperson need to have the business acumen and value creation. That also requires some political skills about what is the best offering, what is the best advice to the customer, which also do not undermines the benefit of the organization. Enterprise mode of sales requires a salesperson to look at the organizational position and look at the strategic positioning of the organization, and also requires a leadership skill, so that the person can offer something which is acceptable to the another organization. Sales cycle, knowledge, complexity and customer number, that is different in different modes of sales. So, the transaction mode generally is suitable for the customer, for the product and services, or we will say offering. Transactional mode is suitable for offering which is generally offered to large number of people. So, the customers number is very high, complexity is not very high. So, this is relatively simple. It requires a repetitive activity, repetitive kind of conversation. So, once you have the product knowledge and pricing, even only with the persistence you can have similar kind of conversations with large number of people, and you can close the deal, and sales cycle happens to be short in these kind of sales transactions. Whereas, in the other extreme, in a consultative style, the product and services which require consultative style, there the complexity is very high. It is not very repetitive, because different customers will require different kind of combination, and you not generally deal with very large number of customers. You have fewer customers, but per customer conversation that number happens to be much higher in the consultative kind of scenario. And of course, in the enterprise kind of scenario, which is generally B2B kind of sales, it is organization selling one offering to another organization. There the number of customers are less, but it is the most complicated deal, and that requires very high level of knowledge, because there are so many variables in what you offer at the organizational level, and the sales cycles happen to be much longer. So, according to the scenario of the sales, different modes are adopted, and according to that incentive plans should also be designed. So, performance measure in a transactional mode, in transactional kind of sales environment, has to be based on the number of orders, revenue generated, number of accounts being opened. In the solution oriented sales environment, the performance measures remains revenue, growth target, product and service sales, and that becomes the performance measure. In a consultative kind of environment, account profitability, my customer should draw the profit, and my performance, the performance of the salesperson depend significantly on the profitability earned by the customer. Line expansion, these are the good measures of performance in the consultative environment. And in the enterprise kind of mode and environment, sales environment, part based agreements, performance based agreements, and profitability of the client, value being generated. So, these are the more prominent performance measures. In these different scenario, we need to design the incentives also differently. So, for a transactional environment, commission based sales incentive works best. In the solution based environment, commission combined with bonus, that works the best. In the consultative mode, in the consultative kind of environment, sales performance should be rewarded according to the bonus, and bonus become more prominent than the commission. And in the enterprise to enterprise kind of sales, bonus becomes the most important sales incentive. So, we can see that different products and different offering are suitable for different kind of sales mode, which are transactional, solution, consultative and enterprise. According to these modes, incentives should be decided and offered to the sales people. After discussing the incentive plan for the sales job, let us look at the team and group incentive plans. team or group incentive plans can be very helpful to achieve the organizational performance, and it can also be a debacle. Example in the book by Dessler and Werke in Human Resource Management, Pearson publication, they talk about the Levi-Strauss. This company, after introducing the group incentive plan, actually suffered losses, and major downhill performance happened after introducing the team based performance. So, incentives have to be based on the team performance, but that needs to be judiciously identified. What are the team incentives and what are the team performance indicators? It is not only the incentive plan which can be changed in an organization. Incentive plans have to be in sync with the performance management system, and performance management system should be in sync with the strategic objective of the organizations. So, organizational strategic objectives, performance management system should be aligned with the incentive, sorry. So, the incentive plans must be aligned with the performance management system and the strategic objectives of the firm. How to design the team incentive? There are certain basic principles which must be followed. We have to, even if we decide the team incentive, even if organizations go for team incentive, they have to set the individual work standards. They have to set the work standard for the team members and then calculate the each team member's score or output as well. That is essential to avoid the free rider problem. Free rider problem simply means some people within the team take the benefit of team working, but they do not put in the desirable level of effort for team to achieve the performance. Members are paid based on one of the three formulas, and those three formulas should be chosen according to the nature of the job. Either all receive the same pay earned by the highest producers, or all receive the same pay earned by the lowest producer, or all receive the same pay equal to the average pay earned by the group. So, according to the job requirements, these three modes of the these three formulas, either of these three formulas can be chosen. Team based or group incentives have some benefits and some potential threats. Benefit or the pros is that it reinforces the team planning and problem solving. When people know that they together swim or sink, they perform in sync with it, they try to perform and they engage in the group work. It helps in ensuring the collaboration, it encourages the sense of cooperation, and it encourages the rapid training of the new members. These are the benefits of adopting the team based incentive. The cons or the threats involved in the in introducing the group or team based incentive is that pay is not proportionate to individual efforts. Some people might be putting in more than average effort in a team quarter after quarter, year after year, and still their incentive will be based on the team's performance, and at times they may feel dissatisfied about it, and there might also be some free riders who will benefit based on others' performance in the team. So, that proportion is difficult to so that change that sorry. So, these problems have to be tackled in the group and team based incentive. Now, we will talk about the organization wide incentive plans. Profit sharing plans are the first type of the organization wide incentive plans. First of that is the cash plan, and second is the deferred profit sharing plans. Cash plans are simple. Organization earn some profit after tax, they identify certain percentage of the profit to be distributed to the employees. According to the salaries proportion, the profit is shared with the employees. Profit sharing can be little more complicated, wherein organization decide for the deferred profit sharing. That means profit earned by organization in a particular year disbursed to the employees to the next coming 2, 3, 4 even more number of years. That is helpful for organizations to retain the employees. So, deferred profit sharing deferred profit sharing generally result in larger number of employees staying with the organization for the longer time. Employee stock option or employee stock ownership plan, that is another very famous organization wide incentive plan. In this plan, firms annually contribute its own stock or cash with, and it's a the outer limit is generally 15% of the compensation, that to be used to purchase the stock, and it is generally done through a trust. So, the organization transfer the stock or the cash to the trust, and that trust on the behalf of the employees allocate the stock, number of stocks according to the set proportion to the different employees. Generally stock is given to the employees who would have spent couple of years with the organization. They can company can buy back or they can sell the stock at the time of the retirement or at the time they leave the organization. So, trust actually holds the stock and it allocates the employee. It is beneficial for the tax, it instills the sense of ownership amongst the employees, and year after year the earning on those tax are generally tax free. So, it is a very lucrative option for the employees. Now, in the gain sharing plan we talk about the Scanlon plan. Scanlon plan is named after the person who gave this formula and gave this process. It is based on the sense of cooperation amongst the management and employees. The identity of the employees is more of a partnership. There is certain type of competency required in implementation of the Scanlon plan, because it requires setting the sales to profit ratio, it requires the calculation of the profitability in a more efficient way. It also requires what is the expected, what is the accepted level of the sales and revenue, the sales expenses and the revenue. So, these things require certain level of technical competency. It is highly involved system, because the committee of the employees actually operate on the behalf of them to negotiate with the management and to implement the Scanlon plan, and sharing of the benefits on the payroll cost to the sales, that is the basis on which the gain sharing plans are decided. There are some other gain sharing plan other than the Scanlon plan, like Lincoln plan, Recur plan, or ImproShare plans. So, plans generally differ based on the percentage of the bonus being decided by the employer to be distributed. The basic principle of the gain sharing plan is that the revenue to sales ratio, sales expenses ratio, or revenue to the expenses ratio is predetermined. When organization achieves over and above the expected revenue in comparison to the expenses, some percentage which is decided mutually, and that is why certain level of competency is required and involvement is required between the representative of the employees and the management. So, based on the pre-decided ratio, that money is distributed to the employees, goes to the management. One example how it can change, the Lincoln plan, in the Lincoln plan employees work on the guaranteed piecework basis. So, they give the guarantee a basic minimum, the basic performance level is decided, and if only after achievement of that level whatever revenue is earned after deducting the expenses, the percentage of that amount is allocated to the employees for the distribution. At risk variable pay plan is also an example of the organization wide payment. The organization wide payment, at risk payment, is about allocating some percentage of the salary, generally it happens to be 7, 8 or 10% of the employees for the average earning per month, and that money is used to give the employees when their performance is not according to the basic standard, or the organizational performance is not being able to be, or the organization is not able to achieve the desirable performance level because of the external factors. So, that acts as a security cushion, and that ensures that employee earning remains constant even if in certain months they are not able to perform because of, and that can be for many reasons, that can be because of the medical reason, lack of training, or some and any other genuine reason, that these at risk variable pay plan help organization to maintain the level of their earning month by month, and making it protected from the variation in the performance and variation in the output, their individual output as well as the organizational output. So, how we decide the executive plan? We decide the executive plan, the first step is always defining the strategic context. What is the nature of environment I am operating, and what my organization is aiming to achieve? It is a growth strategy, liquidation strategy, growth by diversification, is it is my generic strategy of the innovation or sales or the cost leadership. Likewise, first the strategic context must be clear. Based on that, each component of the package has to be decided. We must remember that incentive or any compensation, the primary use of any compensation and incentive is to drive the employee behavior to the desirable direction, and the direction which is towards fulfilling the organizational objective. After that, checking the executive compensation plan for compliance with all legal and regulatory requirements and for the tax effectiveness. Law of the land must be followed. During the session, we will also talk about the different laws which are governing different components of the compensation. So, the compensation plan should be decided which meets the requirement of the various laws which are governing the compensation, and then installing the process for reviewing and evaluating the executive plan whenever the major business changes come. So, business compensation for the executives or for the workers have to be regularly revised, regularly analyzed, evaluated whether those are suitable for the changing reality or not. In the executive compensation, Berkman in 2020 has indicated certain key changes, and the changes are, the first one being compensation and incentives have to be focused more on the mission of the organization rather than the strategy. Strategy and strategic objectives, though they are more tangible, though they are more objective, may not result into year after year consistent effort on the part of the managers. So, if strategy is according to the mission, it is better to focus, better to identify the incentives on the elements of the mission of the organization. Only looking at the shareholder value is not sufficient to ensure the organization's reputation and long term performance. So, incentive should not be only linked to revenue or the benefit to the shareholders. Incentive should be linked to the multiple stakeholders. Outcome rather than milestones should be the focus of the incentives. There has to be a combination of financial and non-financial incentives. We looked at in our discussion that non-financial incentives are also equally powerful in driving the behavior and driving the performance of the individuals and thereby affecting the organizational performance. End to end cycle rather than overlapping is another feature to be followed in the executive compensation. Goals that improve at the set amount over a prior cycle and relative to peer performance rather than only looking at the budgeted performance is also one of the things identified by Berkman as a element of the newly emerging framework of the executive compensation. So, in today's session we looked at how the incentives play so important role in the overall salary or compensation of the workers as well as the managers. We also looked at what are the basic different types of the incentives, individual level, team level and organizational level incentives. What are some of the basic principles to be followed in designing these incentives, and we also looked at the special case of the incentives for the sales professionals. The compensation of the sales people is contributed significantly by the incentives. So, we need to look at the incentive plan of the sales people in a more sophisticated way, and that is what we tried to understand by looking at the document prepared by Deloitte Consulting by their UK office. And towards the end we looked at some of the new things, the new features of the incentive plans emerging in the newly emerging business reality. In the next session we will look at what are the benefits given to the employees, what are the basic benefits imparted to the employees other than the salary and incentive, why they are becoming very important, and what are the basic principles behind identifying the appropriate benefits to the employees. Thank you very much. Namaste.